All right, hello. Welcome to lesson 3 of the Columbia Gorge Lacing Communities Together project. Now I've designed this sampler to build on the stitches that you've already done and then add an element of this beautiful little pine frond. So what I'm envisioning for the finished piece is that we'll have all of these beautiful leaves kind of strewn across it, and they're such beautiful soft trees, aren't they? Those like lovely spines. It's going to make something, I think, quite delicate and with a lot of movement in it. Yeah, I've designed this sampler specifically for this project. It's quite a fun one to make, I think. It builds on some of the lessons that you've already done and then incorporates a little bit more. So let's just get stuck in. So we're going to start just the same as the previous sampler. Folded piece of fabric, paper pattern, and the contact directly on top. I'm going to use a clear contact just so you can see a few different versions in these videos. Then you're going to load up your small needle with a length of couching cotton, secure it to the back, and then just a line of running stitch around the edge, securing all of those edges. Then you're going to, just like before, cover each one of those lines in thread to get ready for your coordinate. And again, just like before, once all of those little lines are covered, you're going to load some lace thread up onto your thicker needle, and we're going to start with the outside line. So just like before, going to run it underneath those stitches around the form twice. Now here is where we're going to branch off a little bit. So we're going to take the needle from that corner into the middle triangle. I'm going to run it just along that one side of the middle triangle, keeping it all nice and straight against the backing. Now you're just going to take it down to the other corner, bring it underneath the coordinate and the stitch that's holding that coordinate in place, and then folding it back to that inner triangle. Up the next side, and you're going to do it again. Just making sure everything's sitting flat and smooth, not twisting or knotting. Now make sure that you're bringing the needle under the coordinate and the stitch that holds it in place. That's going to keep everything where you want it to be. Back down to where you've started on the center triangle, and now you're going to go round once more. So you've got 2 lines of coordinate in that inner triangle. So now you've got coordinate laid on the inner triangle and the outer triangle, and the lines that connect the two in those corners. So bring it back to the outer triangle and we'll make some net stitch. Now we're going to work some net stitch. We're going to go left to right along that top of the triangle. Now you're going to just incorporate those threads in the corner. When it comes up to it, pass the needle underneath every time your needle reaches those points. Now working left to right, we're doing a net stitch, so I'm leaving a gap, a loose one, and then a tight one, all buttonhole stitch. Just keep going all the way along the row. Now if you're running out of thread, as always, with an open stitch like this, you're going to finish off that tail by running it down the coordinate. And start your new thread running it down the coordinate as well in the opposite direction. And then wind it along to where you're ready to start. Just keep watching those corner lines. They're quite a sharp angle, so you're going to pull your stitches down, and wherever they look like they're ready to join that coordinate, just bring the needle under. However you're feeling right attaching them, you're doing the right thing. So I'm going to pass the needle under during the stitch, sometimes with a buttonhole stitch, sometimes just passing it under. However you can get them to secure. So I'll go underneath for this stitch, and that's just going to incorporate it into those loops. And remember, you're going to cover all of these rows with a border later, all of that coordinate. So if it looks a bit messy, don't worry. As long as everything is attached, you're doing the right thing. So same on the left side. Just bring that needle underneath wherever it feels like it should to make the stitches even, and keep attaching it as you go. Now, when you are attaching your coordinate to that net stitch, you want to just bring the needle underneath the coordinate every time you're making your loose buttonhole stitch, and that'll just incorporate the coordinate into that stitch. So as you're working your loose loops, just pass that needle underneath the coordinate, and then when you work your tight ones, just back into the stitch as usual. That should get everything to incorporate really nicely. But again, if you don't get it exactly right, don't worry about it. We're going to cover it all up later. You can't go wrong. And now let's just run the needle up that corner line to the next corner, and we'll start another row. This time let's start by working right to left. Keep going on all of those segments. Alright, now once you've done them all, let's just do a little bit of a border on that inner triangle and the corners. You're going to start with an offcut, and you're just going to, just like all of the rest of your borders, now needle pointing outwards, little offcut thread, buttonhole down the side. And when we reach those corners, let's fill them out as we go along. So I'm going to take the needle underneath the coordinate here to help it sit flat, then bring it right to the corner of the outer triangle. Now you're going to take one of your offcut threads and bring it up as well. Just start stitching, start with a buttonhole stitch in that corner. And now you can fold that offcut thread back, so you've got a nice padding of 3 strands. And buttonhole back towards that inner triangle. Just holding the piece however is comfortable for you. You can pull your needle towards you, push your needle away, whatever works best. Just buttonholing back to that inner triangle so you've filled out that line in the corner as you're passing it. And when you've reached the inner triangle, you're just going to keep going. Remember to continue on all around that inner triangle, working in whichever direction you feel comfortable, needle pushing away or needle pushing forward or to the side. Just fill out those other corners as you go along. And when you're done, just secure that end and weave that little tail up through your border or around, however you can leave a bit of a tail. Cut off all of those offcuts. Anything loose, make sure it's all secure, and it's time to add something more. So let's make a pine frond. Again, I encourage you to just use whatever thread you have on hand. I got this one from a thrift store. It's just a nice cotton. I'm going to take a length and load it onto your bigger needle. Pretty close to the bottom of that triangle, right in the center there. You're going to take the needle and just bring it underneath a couple of those stitches, underneath a little bit of that border in a straight line, and then up those coordinate stitches that you've left into the border at the top, just a few more stitches up. So you're just sort of anchoring the thread in place in a couple of little spots. So you should have one nice long straight line from the bottom to the top, just anchored in a nice even fashion along the edge. Now we're going to fold the thread back and go back to where we started. We don't need to anchor it in quite so many places this time, maybe just in between a couple of those stitches. So you've just got a few more little areas of security there, down through those couching threads. And right back to where you started at the base. Now turn around and we'll do it again. We don't need to really secure it anywhere on this one. It's nice and tied in, so I'll just go through the middle ones and up to the top. So now you've got a beautiful straight line made of 3 strands running from the bottom to the top, and we're going to branch out and make those pine needles. So I'm going to turn it around. Now we're going to work left to right, needle pulling towards you. I'm going to buttonhole just a few stitches towards the base of the pine frond. I'm not going to be too prescriptive about how many stitches to do here or how long each pine needle should be. This is an organic form. All pines are different and all pines are beautiful. So I think I've done about 8 or 9 stitches here. So something, whatever feels right to you. This is just going to be the top pine needle. And now we're going to branch out. So I'm going to bring the needle across. It's a little tricky here at the top, but you'll get the gist. I'm going to bring the needle across and catch it on one of those stitches, one of those net stitches. Then back to the middle line and back. So always working over 3 strands. It's a bit of a magic number in needle lace. So you've got 3 strands, forward, back and forward. Now we're going to turn it around and buttonhole back to that center line. And that's going to be our first little pine needle branching off that center stem. you've reached that center line again, we're going to turn it around and work another few stitches. Not too many, usually just 2 or 3 at this point. Again, not being prescriptive, you do as many as you feel. Onto that center line and let's branch off again. So just pick any stitch out there, going out and then back to that middle stem and out again to the same spot. And now buttonhole back to that center stem over all of those 3 strands. And back to that center line. So you're getting the gist now. We're just doing a couple of stitches on the middle stem, branching off, making all of those pine needles, just building them up as we go down the stem. Now, as the needles are getting a little bit longer, what you want to do is think about attaching them a couple of times to the stitches behind them and to the edge, to that border. So I'm going to incorporate some of the stitches, now that they're a bit longer, incorporate some of your net stitches. Little tricky to see, but just every now and then, just pick up one of the net stitches underneath as you're buttonholing back towards that center stem, and that's going to hold those needles, those little pine leaves needles, in a much more steady way. They'll stay in place a little bit better. Not to every single stitch, but just make sure you're picking up a couple of those stitches, particularly at the border. Remember that some of your pine needles are going to be really short and some are going to be long. We're not aiming for any mathematical precision here. We're aiming for a beautiful organic shape. So add some short ones in, have some long ones. Don't be too prescriptive about it. And also remember to keep track of your thread. If you're just starting to get to a point where you think you might run out, this does use quite a lot of thread, this stitch. So you want to make sure that before it's too short to stitch with, you're just incorporating those new ones along those lines. So add a new one in along that center line or along one of your needles and keep stitching until you've run out with your old thread. Now, when you reach the bottom, you really want to do a little bit more to secure that end. So we're going to go around all of the stitches, around all of those center lines and into the base, really sort of poking the needle into the bottom of that form, of the bottom of the spine and through the stitches. Look, there's no exact right or wrong way to do this. You just want to make sure you've got quite a few stitches there, holding everything in place. Now pass the needle underneath and we're going to turn around. So that's going to go under the stitches, under the stem. We're turning around and we're going to work back up to the top in the same manner. And we're going to start now at the base. So working back to the top of that pine. You're going to start with those bigger branches out and remember to just secure it to those threads underneath as you go along. You want to attach it in a couple of places, particularly down the bottom there where they're quite long, those branches. And now weaving that end in of the working thread, however you see fit really. I'm going to take it down the center line a little ways. You might want to run it down the coordinate, whatever works for you. And when you're done, cut the thread. Only one thing left to do, and that is add a border. So no changes here, just around the edge, everything the same as usual. You've got an offcut thread, you've got your regular thread, start it off in the corner. And buttonhole around, stitches nice and close together. Whichever direction feels the most comfortable for you, I'll be pushing my needle away, working from right to left, holding those padding threads down with my thumb. And there she is, our beautiful pine. All done, all beautiful. Every thread all taken care of. Let's take it off the backing. Just as usual, cut a couple of threads and pull a little bit. And cut a bit and pull a bit. Gently remove your lace from the backing, and there's your beautiful pine sampler. Get those stray threads out, tweezers if you need them, or just with your fingers, whatever works best. What a beauty. Well done, you've done it, you've made a beautiful pine. Here is a little variation that you could do. So there's this option which I made quite large, and I did the joins in a different place. And another option is just to expand it out by branching these needles outwards, making a different shape. And again, if you are a seasoned lace maker, please feel free to experiment. Take a leaf out of your own backyard, on a walk that you go on, or just somewhere from your area. Feel free to experiment and make it, sticking to our colour palette, sticking to the size. I'm really excited to see what you come up with. And yeah, I love the sort of the real beginners, gorgeous, messy, fun little samplers next to something more experienced. So again, feel free to experiment, have fun, enjoy, take in your surroundings and see what you can do with that, with your lace making, and send it in, and we will make something incredibly beautiful all together.